Hey y'all, you're back with us on Sippin and Trippin. You've got ALA and
Tinny tin tin.
and today we're talking about
Politics.
we're not really trying to dive, but we gotta tickle it a little bit. Like
We
we
have thoughts, and I went on an impassioned rant on a telephone
Yes,
call the
yes.
other day, and I'm like, I need to get this out. I
And
just need to get it out.
we're here to help you unpack it, sis. Let's go.
Yes. Unpack my life. Only certain parts, though.
Only certain part, yes. Let's keep it discreet.
So, what are you sipping today?
Today I am sipping on just a simple Folgers coffee, instant, nothing special, a little bit of cream, no sugar. Just
The best part of waking up is Folgers
Folgers.
in. I almost forgot it. That's why. That's why I paused.
I
I couldn't remember the key change.
I'm just for me, I'm not very fancy. I think just I grew up on instant coffee, but mama always made it way too weak. So now that I'm old enough to like control it, I can make it nice and strong with just a nice blop of cream in there. It's always about my skin tone or a little lighter, but that's just how I want my coffee. Like I don't
Girl, they don't know what your skin tone is.
Oh, okay. My skin tone is I would call it a caramel macchiato. It's got some hints of gold in it, but it's also got that red on it when I blush a little because I be blushing.
You're so goofy.
But let's not blush about politics. Like serious. Let's go.
So why don't we start off with what you've been thinking about, and then we'll go
Yes.
to what I've been thinking about, just in
Okay.
case I start ranting again.
Okay. So, um, during Tinny Ten Ten's rant the other day, I told her a little bit about kind of like a catalyst for me while I was in Japan that really started to spring me forward into why I had to come back to America at some point. And like not to be in denial about my life in Japan. Like I loved living there. I had my sister, I had all the comforts of life, but it was easy to be there. It was just easier, at least for me, to be there. And so there was an event back in 2016. I just want to refresh everybody's memory just in case you weren't there. Um, but in 2016, we all endured a very crazy election time between Democratic runner Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump. And of course, we all know the end results. Donald Trump won, but of course, by that same kind of weirdness of the Electoral College picked him, but the popular vote didn't, blah, blah, blah. It was just really confusing. So
Mhm.
imagine being in Japan during this time. You watch all the craziness, you're getting the results, and everything's kind of unfolding. You've got Japanese teachers in the teachers room asking you questions like kind of random about politics, but just being like, who do you think's going to win? And not really asking me who I was going to vote for, but just
I
like what
had
my
a
thoughts were.
12-year-old child ask me, but I
Really?
thought I told you. Did I not tell you?
Girl, hold
We'll come back to
up.
that. We'll circle back. We'll
Okay.
circle back.
So yeah, they were just kind of like trying to get my feelers on it, and I was just trying to like let them know just a couple things, but not really putting all my business out there. I was just quietly trying to watch. Well, after the election results came through, I had one of my English teachers. She came up to me. She was the Sanense teacher, so she taught ninth graders.
Hmm.
And she was just like, I have a question for you. I was like, yeah. She's like, well, this year our book has changed a little bit because there was always a section in their textbooks where they talked about hold on, they talked about Jackie Robinson, Rosa Parks, and MLK Jr.
Hmm.
And she's like, well, the update has changed it. So now we're talking more about, civil struggles in Myanmar and other stuff. She said, but like I do want to talk to the students about, the civil rights time because she's like, I really like love the story of Jackie Robinson and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay. And she was just like, so I really wanted to know whether you were comfortable with putting together a lesson for the students talking about civil rights. Like, why did Donald Trump end up winning this election? And I was just like, oh. And she said, but only if you're comfortable. She said, it's just like in the past, she said, we've had, only teachers who are American who were white and they were boys. And so it was harder to talk about this stuff. But she was like, I would really like it if you would consider it. And I was like, consider what? I'm doing it. Like, I was just
But
like,
did she know why some of the teachers who were white and male, like, I guess, like, how did they talk to her that made her feel that way? Did she tell you about that?
honestly, like to think about how she brought it to my attention, it was more along the lines of, we've talked about, civil rights in the past, but it's like, they're talking about it from I guess what's happened to them. And she's like, it's these teachers talking about what happened to these black people. She said, but in a sense, she knew that, if we're going to these white teachers about these black issues, maybe we're not getting the whole story because Donald Trump obviously doesn't like people of color. Like I felt like that's what she was trying to say. And
Okay,
so,
one more question though.
yeah,
Why were you guys even having a civil rights lesson to begin with?
to begin, you know what? Again, I don't know why they changed the curriculum because in the book before they did cover those three people from the movement, but then they changed that whole section and wanted to talk about Myanmar and like that issue. So I think it actually bothered her that they changed the curriculum because maybe that was one of her favorite things to cover. I don't know. She didn't really go into that, but she was just like, even though the book has changed, I really still want to cover this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, I don't want to go into the every piece that I put together for this lesson because I poured so much energy into it. But like lessons were 45 minutes. So she said that I could take the whole lesson. And when you're in AET, usually you get, 20 minutes to do something. Usually full lessons are like a game day or like a Halloween or Christmas lesson, like something for the holidays. But she was like, you have all 45 minutes, do whatever you want. Just like, run it past me first so I know exactly what you're doing so I can help you if I can. So really, she was going to be my assistant. We were switching places for a day. So that was, again, huge because I'm an assistant. Why? Wow, you're going to let me drive? Okay, cool. So anyway, we got to the day of the lesson. I run everything past her. I let her know that I wanted to do something where we talked about colorism, where we talked about the difference between like where colored people and white people could drink water. Just talk about this separation, segregation. But it was an information dump too. I realized that like even with the simplest English and a ton of pictures, like it was so much for them to take in. But there was a segment at the end that I included on the worksheet I made for them where I wanted them to just talk about how they felt about the lesson. And the teacher was like, all right, I would love the students to, in English, talk about how the lesson made them feel and what they learned. And I said, I'm really sorry, but I can't let you do that. And she was like, what? She's like, well, I really want them to write how they felt in Japanese. Because if they write it in English, they are limited by how little English they know. So I want them to literally have this catharsis where they're saying all these things that they feel in Japanese. If they want to add a little English, that's fine. I said, but my point isn't to make sure that they learned some new words today. My point was to make sure they understood what I was saying. That was really it. And so, at the end, after teaching 3 lessons of like 30 to 35 kids, we've got like a stack of 100 papers with like what information they picked up from the lesson, how they felt about it. And she's like just reading through it and she's just like, wow, like these students like can really see that, if they were in America during that time, they would have been the ones standing at the colored fountain. And I'm like, yeah, that was literally like, I'm trying to make sure they understand.
For a while before that one law got passed to count them as white.
Yeah. And so like just realizing that some of them did have like little aha moments. Some of them were like, yeah, this stuff's happening here in Japan too. Other kids being in complete denial, being like, well, I'm glad this only happens in America. Like you could find that in what they wrote. Like some of them in denial, some of them were like, yeah, that one part where I couldn't come into the classroom because I was too dark, I'm gonna always remember that. Like that was like moments where I'm like, yeah, this was supposed to have an impact on you because there are people who feel like this every day somewhere. And so like it was in some sense controversial because again, like I said, there was a student who said, I couldn't come in because I was too dark. There was a section where I had kids who were a certain complexion coming through the front door, and then kids who didn't match this complexion I set had to come in through the back door. That's what they were referring to. And so
Mhm.
I think to myself now, like, I wouldn't have been able to teach that lesson in America, I don't think. Like, I really think about that. Because, like,
Mhm.
if Jane Elliott can do the eye, like the eye test, the blue eyes versus brown eyes, and still get flack for it, I'm like, so I feel really grateful that I was allowed to go all in like that. But at the same time, it was after it was over and like just kind of going back to the school year as normal, where I realized, like, you guys realize that I don't get to just stop being black because we stopped talking about it. Like, this doesn't
Yeah.
actually stop. This doesn't actually stop. And that was where the wheels for me started turning, where I was just like, this country is going out of control, and I'm over here in Japan trying to pretend like nothing's wrong.
Oh, dang, that's deep.
And that's where it hit me. I was like, and it didn't hit until early 2017, where I was like, clear cut, you're going back. Because then I started having other reasons to come back too. But I was just like, I can't do this. And I think even in my high school time, I had one lesson where we talked about what happened where like white supremacists drove into a group of people and ended up killing a woman because they were protesting about like a Robert E. Lee statue or something like
Yeah,
that.
Heather. I think her name was Heather. I can't think of her last name.
Yeah, I did a quick lesson about that too, except they wanted me to tie in Nelson Mandela for that one, and that was a very short
What?
lesson. It was, it was, it
Those
was,
two
it was
things don't even go. I mean, there's a similar vein, but they don't go together.
yeah, that lesson too again, and that time frame of being like, yep, America is falling apart, and I don't have any explanations for these kids that can even begin to justify what's going on. So I
Mm.
need to go back and go learn for myself what's going on so that I can be a better, well, not even be a better teacher, but just stop pretending like things weren't wrong just because they weren't happening to me.
If you don't mind me adding, so
Yeah.
the girl we were talking about, her name is Heather Hare.
Okay.
And so it was August 12th, 2017. James Alex Fields Jr. deliberately drove his car into a crowd of people who had been peacefully protesting the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia,
Hmm.
killing one, which was
Oh,
Heather, and
Virginia.
injuring
Virginia. Okay.
19. And he drove from Ohio to attend the rally. Um, so he was convicted
Mm.
in a state court of hit and run and the first-degree murder of Heather, as well as 8 counts of malicious wounding, and sentenced to life in prison with an additional 419 years.
Oh,
Dang. In
I
July of
mean,
2019, there's more. He also
oh.
pled guilty to 29 of 30 federal hate crime charges to avoid the death penalty, which resulted in another life sentence, which was handed down in June of 2019.
Mm.
Okay, I didn't know he did all that. Dang.
I didn't either. I did not know
It's
either.
one thing I do want to mention in case, for whatever reason, let's assume there are people who don't live in the country
Right.
that are listening to us or will eventually listen to us.
Mm.
We are so inundated with the news that it's hard to keep up with the
Yeah.
news.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just one constant thing after another. And the media is so focused on the president. Oh,
Yep.
he's walking outside. He's sitting down. He's standing up. Look, he's looking at the sun. Like,
Right.
I get that he's the president, but there's also several other things that could and probably should make front page news
Yeah.
or even just, um, international news. Let's put it this way, before I went to Japan,
Mm.
I've always kind of watched local news because I felt like I learned more from it. And then I supplement that with news that I get on the internet from different sources because I fully believe in cross-referencing.
Yes.
And so even when I was in Japan, I still would try to watch local news, but because I'm in another country, I have to use Twitter or Tumblr or Facebook or whatever to get that,
Right.
or Reddit, you know, and it's so much, and
Yeah.
most of it is just Trump. And either it's people who like Trump, people who are unaffected by Trump, which, I mean, the president affects everybody's lives, but whatever,
Yeah.
whether it's Trump or not. And then people who are like, rah, I hate Trump.
Yeah.
And so, just to be clear, I have never been pro Trump my whole life
Hmm.
because I know enough people in real life who have worked for him and were
Yeah.
personally screwed over by things that he had done. So,
Yes. Yes.
never really been a pro Trump person. When I
Right.
saw him on TV, I've never liked the things he said and done. I remember like the first time I saw him on Oprah a long, long, long time ago, and I was a kid and I thought, he's a mean old man.
Mm.
And that's before knowing the people who worked for him. Okay, I've
Right.
just so you know. So if you guys are like, you're biased, like, yes, I'm being honest about, yes, I am. I
Right.
don't like him as a person, and I don't like any of his policies, except for
No.
like one, and I can't even think of what it is right now, but I was like, you know what, I actually do agree with that. And oh wow, that's sad. I can't even think of it. However, I did have the feeling that I agreed. Just one, exactly one, exactly one. Um, but and it was not one that negatively affected people of color, because
Right.
solidarity.
Mhm.
So, I say all that to say some of the my friends that I had in Japan would say things like, "I don't understand why so many people are worried about Donald Trump. He's just a TV show host."
Eesh.
They said just. He's just a TV show host. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, on one hand, why would anyone let a TV show host who has no political experience
Hmm.
run for the highest office of a country?
Yeah.
Just period. Whether it's America or not. Why would you let, actually, they don't even have to be a TV show host. They could be a teacher. Okay? Why would you
Right.
let a teacher with no political experience, none, no political knowledge, none, no political
No.
studies done in life, none, run your
No.
country? That doesn't make any sense to me. And that was what I would tell people when we were in Japan. I'm like, it's just like freaking Reagan all over again. When people
Mm.
had jokes because, oh, here's this actor running for president, but I actually like him because he's handsome. What's that got to do with running a country?
Absolutely nothing. And
Some people would say things like, whether it's Reagan or Trump, I noticed that they said a lot of similar things about both of these people.
hmm.
And it was just like, he has access to money, he knows people who can get the job done, he didn't
Yeah.
agree with the previous incumbent, um,
Right.
and it was enough for them.
Right.
And that worries me a lot. And even for people in Japan, they're not affected by it. So some of my
No.
friends were like, oh, well, I hope you guys work it out. Like, and
Mm.
we need more than hope.
I think the one thing I noticed, especially when I was preparing for that lesson, was that, Japan still has a very strong heart for Obama. They really loved
Yeah,
Obama.
it's like
So,
random.
and I'm like, guys, I get it. I'm glad that you guys feel so much hope from him. But I mean, when Obama got elected, even with me as a young new voter, I was just like, I knew having a black president wasn't going to fix everything.
Hmm.
It felt like a band-aid win. Even still to this day, it felt like a band-aid win. Like, come on, you guys are president now. What are you still mad about? It's just like that's exactly how they use him now. And so I'm just like, when Japanese people realized how different Trump was from Obama, I think that's what confused them. They're like, wait, but Obama said this and did this. Trump is not saying those things.
Wait, wait, wait,
Why
wait,
is
wait,
he
wait.
even in the
I
running?
literally had a person say President Obama can speak in full sentences. and,
And
and Donald Trump
I
can't.
stand here today
And Donald
to
Trump
make
can't.
sure that the American people are understood and compensated for all the trouble that they have felt dealing with this president's nonsense.
This, I love it. That was great.
So yeah, he was just
I
so
just love, I'm
like,
gonna bring in all the people. They're gonna be really great people. And,
and I have
everybody,
very large hands.
knows.
I have very
Everybody
large hands.
knows.
Like, nobody asked me that. How are you fixing anything?
But
We're
Anna,
gonna make America great. We're gonna make it great again. It's like, yeah, when it came down to him, and especially after I taught those lessons, when I got to sit and talk to that teacher who had asked me to do that, I
hmm
told her, I said, what makes me sad is that I said, Trump winning is not a complete surprise because I understand that race has been an issue
hmm
in our country. I know that. But I said now the world can see it. Now the world is watching a bump that's literally been festering under the skin for hundreds of years, and now we
hmm
can't hide it anymore because the forefront of our country is happy to stand on our backs and pretend like he's not. He's happy to do that. And I'm like, and
hmm
now the world is watching our nonsense, and y'all are confused because y'all didn't even know what was going on. Y'all low key did, but now you have like full proof that this is happening. Now with what's going on now with Biden and Trump, I'm just like, the fact that we're in a country that's like saying, you need to vote, but you're also getting, ads that say don't vote. Ads are saying mail-in ballots are frauds, but don't forget to get your mail-in ballot. I'm like, it's like they're working really hard to make sure the
You're
American
constantly
population,
confused.
yeah, they're trying to make
But
sure that we're either numb or just bombarded by so much that we just
hmm
become apathetic and just disconnect from it so that we don't have to feel
hmm
it. But we have to feel it. Like, it's
hmm
the season. It's the
Oh
season.
yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, even the president has voted by mail several times in his life. Like,
It probably didn't get counted.
it totally got counted, but it wasn't counted too much, but it was counted just enough.
Now, I made sure I only voted one time because I like to look out for the American people. Like,
I feel like we're doing an Alec Baldwin impression of Alec Baldwin's impression of Trump.
honestly, I've been watching way too much Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers.
I feel like I learned so much from them, and that's really sad.
I agree, but that's just it. Like, we live in a world where the satirical voices are the ones telling us the truth, or at least it feels that way. They're
And
all
Samantha.
saying,
I don't know if you watch Samantha Bee. She's funny.
oh, I do watch her sometimes. Not as often as I should, but I definitely, and I was watching a lot of his, what's his name? Crap. Hassan Minhaj. I was watching
Oh yeah, Hassan is great.
his show got canceled though, so
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that because that show was it.
but girl, what you gotta tell us though? What was you going on about thought about the other day?
So
Let's
like the problem is once I get a rant out, I kind of forget half of the rant. So basically, just to summarize,
Mhm.
for those who don't know, I have been teaching English as a second language for over 7 years. Right. Mainly, I've
Mhm.
been teaching online. My students are literally from every continent except Antarctica. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm constantly having conversations with students who are saying, Teacher, what is going on in your country? Why is your president saying this? Or why is a senator saying this? Or why are people doing X, Y, and Z? It's especially ramped up since the situation with the coronavirus. So
Yeah.
the majority of my students are from China and Brazil. Okay. But like I said, I have other students from literally everywhere except Antarctica. Okay. And so a lot of the Chinese students, I remember it was mid-December. Some of them were already saying, hey, we heard that there's like a virus outbreak. Hopefully it'll go away because I want to, go traveling. Um, some of them weren't in Wuhan, but they were close enough to Wuhan that I guess like they personally didn't feel like going places. Or some of them wanted to travel to Wuhan, but they were like, no, maybe I shouldn't go just in case.
Mhm.
Because they were thinking that it was going to be like H1N1
Yeah.
or SARS by the time we got to, I want to say, beginning of January.
Mm.
But I had known about the virus since mid-December because I talked to people who live in these countries. So they were
Mhm.
saying they were just telling me like, what do you do in your country when you have virus outbreaks? And I'm like, well, fortunately, I've never personally experienced one.
Yeah.
I do know that a lot of people will try to isolate, they might stock up on whatever they need so that they don't have to go out very often, just stuff like that in general. They said, "Oh, okay, we do
Mhm.
that too. Do you wear face masks?" And I said, I mean, I do personally, but that's because I lived in Japan and I got used to it,
Right.
you know? So I wear a face mask if I have a cold. I wear a face mask if my stupid allergies come back, even though I didn't have allergies before I moved to Japan. Yes, I am salty. And then I'll wear them. Shut up. And then I'll wear them if I have the flu or something like that. So
Right.
basically, if I get sick, I wear a face mask just in case so I don't spread it. So some
Right.
people look at you like, oh, the spawn of Satan has emerged. Like Americans will freak out. Not
Yeah.
now, obviously, but some people would look at me weird and they're like, "Are you sick?" And I'm like, "No, I just have allergies, but like I don't want y'all seeing this stuff gush out of my nose." And they're like,
Right.
"Oh, good point, good point." you know? And I would like put
I,
tissue in my face mask.
I hear you. I didn't really wear masks a whole lot because they fog up my glasses. But the concept of it
Mm,
was like, okay, I'll wear a mask.
mm.
Like, what's the issue here?
Well, so here's the thing. I have been asked, okay, since December until about March or April. Teacher, how come Americans don't wear face masks? You guys have to wear face masks. If this virus comes to the US, you need to be prepared. How come what's going on? How come you don't wear face masks? I think it's really weird that Americans don't wear face masks. Like I had this conversation repeatedly 5 to 6 times a week for months. And on one hand, I'm not upset at my students for asking me. Like, of course, feel free to ask me those questions because you don't live here, so you don't know. But on the other hand, it was the fact that I got asked it so much. So that happened. And then moving forward, the questions went from why don't Americans wear face masks to why are Americans not wearing face masks when they should? And so
Yeah.
one of my students, well, actually, more than one of my students is a doctor, and some
Yeah.
of them are nurses, But some of them are virus researchers, actually, two of them were students who were specifically studying viruses.
Hmm.
And one of those groups of students from China said, China is treating this virus like it is airborne,
Mm.
just in case it mutates and becomes airborne. This
Mm.
was February, a little before my grandma died.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they and some other people too would say like I really think that you guys should wear a face mask.
Mm.
Treat it like it's airborne just in case. Make sure that you're spraying sanitizer in all of your buildings, on the streets themselves,
Yeah.
anywhere and everywhere people are. Keep the doors and windows open, like all of this stuff. And so they're like, be careful with your face masks. You have to be careful how you handle them. At that point that I started having conversations with, you have to be careful how you handle them. We were all going through a face mask shortage,
Yeah.
both in China and the US. And so let's summarize it as I've been having this conversation since December about the
Hmm.
virus. Okay. Then
Hmm.
around March, at least my state ended up, shutting down. We did our quarantine. Everybody lost their freaking minds. And some people were like, you can't make us wear face masks. You're trying to kill us. I'm like, what a
This is
freaking,
oppression. That was
um,
my favorite. That was my
oh
favorite.
yeah, this
You're
is, no,
oppressing us.
no, no, this is worse than slavery. I'm like, my whole family would like to talk to you.
Okay, hold on. May
Let
I
me, let
ask
me
you,
call,
sir?
let me call
Sir?
the ancestors just for
Sir?
you.
Sir, what's your shirt made out of?
Shut up, shut up.
Sir? Sir, wait, why are you running from me?
No, here's the thing. Here's one of the things I thought about. Some of the
Hmm.
people who went to those marches came there on motorcycles where they had scarves over their faces to protect them on their motorcycle, and yet they didn't die. I just explain that to me. Explain that to me. I really would like to know. You got your whole nose and mouth covered, riding at high speeds for long periods of time, and you didn't suffocate then, but somehow wearing a face mask is going to suffocate you. And I realize there are, in fact, real people like cancer,
Mhm.
people with cancer. Those face masks can be really hard for them.
Yeah, and there's some people who are asthmatic, as my mom has explained
Yeah.
to me, where she's like, some of them can maybe, put it under their nose so they can breathe a little better. But she's like, for the most part, though, like it really isn't a big deal. Like, I'm just like, and my mom's a nurse. She deals with
Hmm.
this all the time. So I'm just
Hmm.
like, y'all need to stop. Like, no one is sick.
Oh
Y'all
no,
aren't
I
sick.
remember when there was like a pregnant, I don't remember if she was a pregnant doctor or a pregnant nurse, and she's like, I have to wear a face mask all day. And I'm at high risk for this virus. If I can do it, you can do it. Part of the reason I called the other day pissed off is because now a lot of these same students, some of them in China, some of them in Taiwan, some of them are, from African countries, but they're living, in other countries, and they're saying, oh, in my country, you can go outside and you can do this and you can do that,
Yeah.
and we can go traveling. And what are you going to do this weekend, teacher? I'm going to go to the swimming pool with my kids. I'm like, must be nice. Must be nice. And then a lot of my students are from in Canada. They're not from Canada, they're just in Canada.
Right.
And some of them are in Australia as well. And they're like, yeah, we don't have to wear face masks anymore. It's great. I'm like, again, must be nice. In addition to that, the last thing that pissed me off was that, well, I shouldn't say pissed me off, it's more an envy thing,
Okay.
is the students would say, I don't understand why you don't have nationalized healthcare in your country, especially during a pandemic. I don't understand why the government is not giving you guys enough money to stay home. I don't understand why the government is not subsidizing it through businesses and other enterprises to make sure that enough people can stay home so that hospitals don't get overwhelmed and
And
nursing homes
that's
don't
what,
get overwhelmed and that people don't die. And I'm like, you really need to go back to the history of how colonialism and capitalism affected this country.
yep.
Because a lot of
Yep.
people will say history doesn't matter, but they'll repeat that crap all day
Oh, they
and
will.
then
But
be surprised.
I think what the world is watching, again, that same thing I said about when Donald Trump got elected, now the world could finally see our foolishness. They're seeing it again because of Corona. Like they're
Yeah.
realizing, I mean, I'm sure other countries too, there's corruption everywhere. I'm not going to act like it's just not
Oh,
here.
for sure, yeah.
But it's like they're watching the fact that America values corporations over actual people. That is the
Hmm.
issue. And
Hmm.
it's because capitalism and democracy have somehow married into this horrible blob that they're like, well, you can't have one without the other. It's like, yeah, we can, and we
You
kind of
can.
need that right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's not working. It's not. Why are y'all
Look,
acting like
I'm
this
old
is
enough to
working?
remember being in elementary school and, no, I'm sorry, being in sixth grade.
Hmm.
And my history teacher, no, I'm sorry, seventh grade. I remember him because he was this tall white guy and he thought he had really cool hair. And I'm like, man, if I was a dude, I'd want hair like that. That's how my brain works, just so people know.
Mm.
And so I remember we had a class that was talking about how a lot of European settlers came to this country. And I was
Hmm.
telling about this before on a different phone call a long time ago, but some people's ancestors got kidnapped. Like straight
Yeah.
up kidnapped. They were like, "Hey kid, want some candy?" And the kid was like, "Yeah." And then they snatched them. They brought them to the US as indentured servants.
Hmm.
I mean, indentured servitude is in fact a form of slavery.
It is.
So they were just like, "Hey, you're going to come here and you're going to work for us." And if it wasn't indentured servitude, they would put them in factories and then make them work in the factories.
Hmm.
I mean, God bless them for surviving, you know?
Right.
So we have a vested interest in keeping a workforce so that certain groups of people can make money. Having a
Yep.
healthcare system, not in our best interest. When
And
they
yet
enslaved
somehow
Africans and Native Americans, they didn't keep them healthy. They just kept working them to death and then kidnapping more of them.
we're calling these people essential workers now. They are literally
Hmm.
integral
Yeah,
to what America is, and
but not
yet,
integral enough for healthcare
nope. Like,
or
oh no,
financial
well,
support.
when you die, you're no longer useful to us. So the faster you do that,
No, the faster you die, the more money you're worth.
again, corporations over people.
Yeah. I mean, you could thank Citizens United for helping to drive that point home.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yes, but I jumped back in time to say to say all that just because the US has always had an vested interest in having a workforce but not supporting that workforce, whether it was in white indentured servants, whether it was enslaved Native people, whether it was enslaved Africans, whether it was Chinese workers on the railroad,
Yep.
right? Like no matter who it is, we don't value people.
No.
And the irony is, I feel like we actually valued people more, somewhat, in the past, and now it's just like, oh well, if we die, we die. Like, who
Yeah.
are you to decide that? Why do you think that is a good way to drive society forward? I don't understand that. And I don't understand why you should have to know people in order to care about their lives and their livelihoods.
Yeah.
I could never reconcile that. And I feel like no matter what political party you vote for, whether it's the Democrats, whether it's the Green Party, whether it's Republicans, whether it's Libertarians, or, people like me who are independents,
Yeah.
do you value your society enough to keep it moving forward, to make sure that it evolves into something
Yeah.
that, as cheesy as it sounds, can be inspiring to others? Like there's
Or
what did they say about America?
hmm,
Uh what it's a shiny city on a hill, something like that. I can't think of the phrase right now.
that
But they
sounds
use it
vaguely familiar, but
yeah, but
I
they
don't know
use
if
it
we learned that phrase in Ohio.
they use it all the time in politics, and I feel like what
Mm.
what is what's so shiny and great and awesome and inspiring about the US right now to have groups of people saying, you can't make me wear a face mask to keep my fellow citizens alive.
But
You
it's
can't
okay to
make me, vote for your candidate because they're this or they're that. I'm like, okay, well, what does their record show? Well, I don't know, but I know that they're this and they're that. Okay, well,
like
as soon as you can tell me what the record is, we can have that conversation. Otherwise, it's just political talking points.
again, if we're dealing with a monster that's out of control that is propelled forward by capitalism and democracy, it thrives on the fact that if we can just keep dehumanizing groups of people that we don't know or don't affect us personally, we can keep this cycle in a sense of hatred going so that these people can continue to be oppressed, controlled, or whatever. I hate that people have turned masks into something political. It really
Yeah,
makes me mad.
yeah,
Because I'm like, I feel like caring about my neighbor, even though I don't talk to them, is the least I can do for them. Like it's the least I can do.
yeah.
There are people right now who are like, "Oh, I didn't believe in the mask, and now I'm sick. I guess it's real." And now we've got our president acting like everything's fine. It's not
Mhm,
even that bad, and I'm just
mhm.
like,
It may not be that bad for you, but also he keeps having health crises even before this, and he won't be honest about it, which is not a good look because I feel like a lot of people are in denial about how much they look up to
mm,
politicians, how
mm-hmm,
much they like and want to be like politicians. And they're in denial about that. And to go
yeah.
back to your point about the face mask, that's part of what made me so why I was like ranting because so many people are committed to their political identity has become their only identity. We're
Yes,
human
that is a
first.
perfect way to say it.
And
I
what makes me so angry is most of the people who I see doing this call themselves Christians. And I'm like,
Yep,
if you are
yep.
going to call yourself a Christian, but you don't support your fellow citizens having some sort of health care that's affordable so that they can live and survive and God can satisfy them with long life, what is the freaking point? Like, what's the point? What's the point?
Yes.
Or you as a Christian are sitting here going, well, as a God-fearing Christian, I can only vote conservative. Girl, if you're a God-fearing Christian, being conservative or democratic shouldn't be your first freaking concern. But
This is
that is fully my opinion. Okay, that is fully my opinion.
You have to remember, and I've said this to another friend. We had a phone call the other day. Shout out to Nikki if you listen. We had a conversation where it was just like a lot of people are in some way hiding behind their Bibles so they don't have to think
Mhm.
for themselves about what's going on. And
Thank
I'm
you.
like, we
Thank
need to
you.
stop. And again, I'm all about get in your word. Yes, go verify why
Yes.
you believe in what you believe in, but don't
Yes.
use it as some fake shield. Like, well, the Bible also says this, and I'm using this verse right now because I can apply it to this particular thing I'm talking about. But take it completely out of context so that I can prove my point. Don't do that. If you're going to
Mhm.
weaponize the Bible against me, I'm not reading your Bible and I'm definitely not reading it with you. So I'm just
Yep.
like, look,
Yep.
like that's where we're at right now. Like if anyone who is saying, "Hey, I'm in my word and I actually understand why this is happening to this group of people," you're not Christian. And I'm just going to say it. Period. Point
No,
blank.
they are
Period.
Christian. They are Christian. And I think that what a lot of us have forgotten, us being Christians, us being Americans, is that
Yeah.
whether you like it or not, you are your brother's keeper. This
Yes.
whole being, well,
Where
um,
my tambourine at?
I'm in, I really do feel like individualism has been at the core of the decay of Western society. And the need, yo, look, I am being 100%. This is fully my
No,
opinion, and
you're right.
there's not enough time today for me to go into detail, which is why I'm skipping around, which is why it's also hard for me to focus on what I'm trying to say to you. But yes, you can be an individual. Yes, you have individual civil rights that are fully yours, whether in policy by your country or in, the spirit imbued in you by God. There are
Right.
certain rights that you have, but the rights God gave to you does not always correspond to the rights that your country gives to
Yeah.
you. That is
Yeah.
fully up to you to try to reconcile.
Right.
However, Jesus had separation of church and state while he was alive. We have separation of church and state in the United States, but somehow there's enough people out here going, well, because I'm Christian, I'm going to support this man who literally says and does horrible things to people and laughs about it and has spent the last 4 years complaining that nobody likes him. Full, if I had the same level of power that you have, F the haters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just seriously, he could be like he could be some of the worst people in history, and
Mhm.
even Hitler and freaking Mussolini complained 24/7. They don't like me. They don't like me. Why don't they like me? You have unmitigated power. That's what you wanted, and you're still freaking concerned about all the people who don't like you, which they should be. Don't get me wrong. They very well
Right.
should be concerned about that.
Right.
But the fact
Right.
that they publicly complain about it so much, I mean, but they could be helping people. You could be, like, even if you think, well, everyone should pull themselves up by their bootstraps, XYZ, you're responsible for you. That all falls apart when you realize without people picking your food, you ain't got no food to eat. Without people making your clothes, you have no clothes to wear. Without people
Yeah.
making your shoes, you have no shoes to wear. People have to literally get textiles from somewhere, either hand make them or machine make them, fine. Someone has to maintain those machines. Every
Mhm.
single thing that you, oh, I sorry, every single thing that you do and that you have in life has been influenced by another human being. And to sit here and say, well, you know what? I do me, you do you, the choices I make don't affect you is a literal lie, and it pisses me off so much. What's up?
I'm
You're
going
making faces.
I'm gonna rewind what you said because as you're saying that, all I can think about is how in Japan they are inundated with the idea that they are part of a team. So they're not
Yeah,
really
because they have
individuals.
wa.
Like they deal with everything in opposite of how Americans deal because they are so concerned with the class, they're so concerned with the company, they're so concerned with this team.
Hmm.
But everything that they have that America doesn't, we need, and everything that America does that they don't have, they need. But this is where I'm going to make the point. As you were talking about, somebody had a hand in making the one thing that you need to do this and to do that.
Hmm.
What we have decided is government and democracy. What you described to me was community.
But
And
your government is part of your community, and I feel like we've gotten so distanced from that that now the government is just this amalgamous blob. We don't know
yes,
who they are half the time. We don't know the amount of power they have half the time. Half the shit they do is late at night when no one can see it, but a law gets passed that affects your life.
yep. And I think just deep down, our huge issue now then would be people are basically taking a side so that if something falls apart, they feel like, oh, well, that's what they said. They can blame somebody. It's removing personal accountability from these choices and groups that they're deciding to follow. And again, we all get judged for that in the end. That's where I take comfort. But it's all very ugly going down.
Hmm.
And I don't know by November how it's going to look or feel,
Hmm.
but it's not looking or feeling too great right now. Like that's really all I can say.
I'm very upset that we sit here and get angry at the government for ruining our lives. When I say we, I mean Americans. This is a very
Right, right,
common phrase we
right.
have. We get mad at the government for doing things we don't like or passing bills that negatively affect us or supporting people who we think the government shouldn't support. Okay,
Yeah.
well, how are we personally interacting with the government? Do you call your representatives? Do you volunteer for grassroots causes? Do you, write or even email your representatives? Do
Hmm.
you work with nonprofit organizations that keep your governments responsible? Are you supporting children in school who have these same kind of programs?
Yeah.
Who write to their representatives and try to hold them accountable. What are you teaching your children about their role in society? What I'm talking about is civics,
Yeah.
basically. You have no society without civics. You have no society without an educated populace. You have no society without people who are scientifically literate. You have no society without people who realize, yeah, we're all humans that come from different places, but at the end of the day, we're freaking human. And we
Yeah.
all have to live on this planet because there's nowhere else to go. And even if there was, you're still going to be human and you're still going to live in a society because that's what we do, because it is intrinsic to who we are. Humans
Right.
are communal people, or even
Right.
humans are a communal species, put it that way.
Although
I feel
rewind to that
like
point,
we just yada da over that so we can have political fights that go nowhere.
I don't want to look too far into the future right now because obviously we're still trying to get through this month. We're still trying to
I
get through a
know.
pandemic. We're still trying
I
to get
know.
through this election. We're still trying to get past all the news and go find actual reputable news sources. We're all doing that. I hope we're doing that. I implore y'all to do that.
And
Please be
listen to
looking for
varied
news.
voices because, like, for ALA and I, we don't just subscribe to one political identity. I think that there are things
Mm,
you can use to have a good society from democratic principles, conservative principles, libertarian principles,
mm-hmm,
independent principles. I feel like, and I fully realize this is idealistic.
mm,
If we could find a middle ground between all of that, we can use it. Oh, Why did I forget socialist? Socialist principles and communalist principles, maybe even some, communist principles. I don't know. I really don't know.
Right.
But
Right.
if we could take all that, basically things that humans make up, put all of it together in a blender, pick out the best chunks, maybe that would be helpful and useful to our society. And again, I realize that's idealistic and that most likely it's not going to happen, but we can try, because at the end of the day, all of this is something we invented.
Yep.
We as a
And
species, we put ourselves in groups, we organize ourselves, and then we say, well, I belong to this group and you belong to that group and they belong to that group, but we all live together.
yep.
And again, your political identity is not your only identity. You have other identities.
I just
And your political identity is not better nor worse than someone else's political identity, unless it comes at the cost of other people. Let's put it that way.
right. So I guess the moral of today's podcast is I think it's what you're saying. You can't let your political identity be all you are, but also if your political identity emboldens you to make sure that you feel unapologetic about stepping on other people,
Mm-hmm.
you need to reevaluate your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're listening to this podcast and you feel triggered by me saying that, you might be part of the problem. So I'm just
Feel
going to put
triggered.
that out there.
You should feel triggered. Growth is uncomfortable.
Thank you. And it's
That's why
supposed to
babies
be.
cry. Babies aren't crying for attention. Babies
Nope.
don't cry, to be spoiled. They're crying because they're growing, because they grow in bursts, and it's uncomfortable. Same way when it comes to your political thoughts and ideologies, you should be able to hold two different ideas in your mind at the same time and reason
Yep.
them out. And
Yep.
that is uncomfortable. That takes practice and a willingness to understand voices that are not yours.
So the challenge is to go and find those voices. Go and sit with Go and sit with that discomfort. Like, do it. Because if you don't do it, first off, you're doing yourself a disservice. But you're becoming less of a human being every time you don't do it.
And if you're only listening to voices that devalue others, and I say this specifically to Christians, you've divorced yourself from God. Point blank.
Go fix that. Go fix that before he needs to fix it for you.
Look.
Is God a black mama? Did I just do that?
Yes, I think so. Look, if God's not a black mama, God's an Asian mama, because look, they don't play.
What? But God's not a woman. Next time on our podcast.
Hey, look, one of the names for God is El Shaddai, and that is a feminine form, but that's another story for another day.
It is.
I be reading.
Oh, girl, and we need to stay reading, so we'll do that. What's that?
This is a mess. This whole pod was a mess.
It wasn't. I actually think we had a cohesive point there. I don't think you should be concerned at all.
Okay.
So, but
Leave
I gotta
this
get
conversation in. They need to know we discuss things like this.
Yes, we need to know that we know we're disorganized. But
we're not political commentators. We don't get paid for this. But if you want to pay us, we got a coffee. Cough, cough.
Baby girl. Remember, we are sipping and tripping at the same time. So if
wait. We need to explain what tripping means because it has nothing to do with drugs.
You're right. Okay, so when I named the podcast Sippin and Trippin, I wanted tripping to be not like, I guess, a double entendre, because obviously in black slang we use the word tripping when like you're doing too much or you maybe overreacting to something. But tripping also, could also mean traveling. It can also mean you're really excited about something, you need someone to talk you down. Like there's a lot of things that tripping goes with that I feel like our podcast
not just getting high,
capture.
but
yeah,
we're not with the way our society's going. I just
we need to trip a little bit. Like if we don't start tripping now, we're gonna start slipping. I think it's gonna be sipping and tripping and slipping. Slipping and
Sippin'
tripping and
Trippin,
slipping.
Sippin' Trippin.
Put it over a trap beat.
Where's my? I need something to hit. Slipping and tripping and tripping and slipping and tripping and slipping and
Slipping and
slipping.
tripping and tripping and slipping.
It doesn't work with this. I need something harder so I can like drum on it.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Okay,
We
but
might
don't
continue
worry.
down this line of thought because I still have thoughts.
We might. Let's pencil it in for another day. We need to maybe get some more off our chest. I think I can do that. Okay. All right.
Peace out
I'm
for
going.
now. Goodbye, everyone. We love you.
Bye,
Be
y'all.
safe.
Vote.
Bye.
I
What'd you say?
said vote.
Vote with your community in mind.
Please and thank you.
With your country in mind.
In the name of Jesus.
In the name of Jesus, let Jesus influence your thoughts if you're Christian.
Oh, please, Lord.
I'm not going to put Jesus on non-Christian, so.
That's fair.
Bye.
Bye.